No, but you're asking good questions. So let's answer some of those.
And
hello.
yet, I mean, it's not disrespecting gurus or teachers, because everyone's a guiding force sometime in your life. But I think it's how do we really become autonomous within a collective consciousness.
It's fair to say that when we're on the road, the sign is not the destination. A sign is just a sign. And while it may be absolutely essential for you to get to the destination, adding any more meaning to what is only a signpost will keep you bogged down in staring at the sign for no reason. People are those signs as well. Whoever we run into on our path, whatever we run into on our path, they're only to direct us where we set our trajectory point. If you don't have a trajectory point, you're largely just flapping in the breeze. And you'll encounter good stuff and you'll say, oh, that was all worth it, but you're not really setting a course for yourself, and that is really different. This is the last one. Hello, come in. So guys, my name is Byron. I run a business with my wife Dana called Aeon Soul, and we are a healing service and training school on the Sunshine Coast. So we specialise in doing stuff kind of at a 102, 103 level, because what we notice is that a lot of folks within the spiritual, healing, holistic fields tend to plateau at a certain stage for various reasons. Even if you've done your Reiki Masters and this and that or 100 modalities, our excuse is life takes over, but what I tend to notice is the truth is that we actually don't know how to really keep going with what we've done. It's not that life takes over, it's just that we're not quite as stimulated and as motivated as we were many years ago. And there's really no reason for that. There's loads of stuff to keep doing and continuing on to in your work, but it takes a slight change of mindset. And the entry level area is when we believe we are going to see a teacher or a healer. And the model of that will keep you going forever, because the psychology is you're investing in your answer being in someone or something outside of yourself. The other approach to this, which we all know, but we don't always know how to base what we do on, is that we can only be our own source of healing, or that source itself is the source of our healing, and others can be guides or signposts, but they really can't do anything. And when you get with that program, there are so much more that you can do in your healing work, even in your healing practice. Like, you don't have to shut down your business and start doing stuff for free. There's just a whole new world that opens up as you change your perspective from no one else does anything. So we provide training around all of that sort of stuff. Where do I go after my Reiki Masters? What do I do with this stuff? To allow people to be self-empowered enough to not have to rely on anything outside of themselves. So a part of that is understanding some slightly more advanced concepts and understanding things that are overarching and inclusive of everything that we do. So it's not like a niche area of knowledge. When you get certain principles and concepts that we're talking about, you can apply it to everything, every part of your life, the way that you work with clients, all of that sort of stuff. And the deepening of your new perspective will open your path in ways that was right in front of you the whole time and you just didn't know because you were looking at something else. Does that make sense? All right. One of those principles or concepts is time. So we hear a little bit about time and people talking about timelines, time jumping, multidimensionality, blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. And we kind of go, yep, time isn't real. Time is a construct. And you've heard all of those lines, you know. We just made up time. Time is only clocks and stuff. And that's all great, but you don't really get it enough to orient your practice around your awareness of that. Yes, it's just an area of knowledge so far, but it hasn't been put into practical application. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, around time in relation to healing. Sound right? Cool. So, if I can just start with a real simple question, I want you to think about when you have experienced healing as you define it the most in your life. One of the biggest events that you would define as a healing event for yourself or someone else. Just want you to kind of find a point when you connect to that time or that point in your life. Does anyone have a version of that? Is anyone's moment that they're thinking of right now in this room with us, here and now? I bet it's not. I bet you're thinking of another time. Yeah? I would put it to you on the opposite side of the same coin, that if you were to have a think about when is the time I've experienced the most trauma or the most need for healing as you define that in yourself or a client, I bet if I was to ask you for an example or something that is your true reference point, regardless of your state now, I bet your reference point is not here and now. It is another existence or event in time, past or future. And sometimes it's future, it's not always things that have happened. Sometimes the anticipation of dread, the expectation of healing to come in the future, that's a biggie, and we don't really notice it. When I have achieved this, when I have been on this path long enough, get bigger, when I have lived enough lives and so forth, they're all conditions that we place on healing as our trajectory. But time is like the wedge that we've placed between ourselves experiencing having achieved it. Because healing is not your goal. Healed is your goal. That is the truth. Healing is just the carrot that you can follow till the end of. And you'll learn a bunch of stuff and you'll call it worth it, but you don't get there. So to really get clear on what your trajectory is and what your goal is in the way that you work and the way everything works can make things way more efficient for you and for your clients as well. So our examples of healing, our examples of trauma, our examples of every sort of major event that we would call signposts, we have this rich tapestry based in time in our heads, containing future, containing past, and all of those things live in time. So time is something that, yes, of course, we've created it. It doesn't necessarily exist. And we're not just talking clock time, which is your incremental time that we teach. Time that we're talking about today is the very simple construct of then or past and when, future. And so we work in this 24/7 and we don't even know that we do it. And we orient everything that we do and our perception of everything within this structure of time. It's either happened or it's going to happen. And so yes, within the construct of time, that's totally true. If you are working within the linear structure, yet according to the linear structure, you are moving this way. So there's stuff behind you where you've been and stuff ahead of you where you're going, and everything will fit neatly within that. But that's just looking at something with a specific pair of glasses. Of course, you're going to see it a certain way because that is the lens that you have adopted and are choosing to see things through. So the idea of sequential lives, the idea of past lives, if we want to get a little bigger, works in this framework too. The very concept of reincarnation is really referring to linear time. It is the sequence of existence that we live a life, we finish. We are reborn, we live a life, we finish. Regardless of your idea around that, it follows a time sequential order. And so that's buying into the linear time frame. And if you look at things according to time, of course, that makes sense. So where does multidimensionality fit into this? That we are all things all at once? Because that just blows your lens of time out of the water. So I want you to think of the straight line, the linear line, because we believe we're going this way and we believe that we've come from that way. That's the line, and we go this way. Multidimensionality has a completely different perspective on all of those events. It doesn't discount or discredit anything that you put on your linear line, but it puts them in a completely different order, and you can't not see them differently. So things that you perceive having happened on your line to what is happening now to what will happen, it almost moves that line sideways so that they are all happening simultaneously. Everything that you have structured within your lens of The past that has happened, that is going to happen, means they are all valid now. So our mind essentially can't get the concept of that. You'll get it academically, you'll get it intellectually, but to experience what we're talking about is something unfathomably different. To really let go of your time structure and your referencing to time. And our language doesn't help us because we were introduced to the concept of linear time immediately from birth. And so we now place everything in the way we see it. In a time reference, we call it the past or we call it the future. And if this is where you are here and now, well, you can't access anything from a minute ago because it's in the past. And while you may anticipate what's coming, it's not here right now. So we're essentially disconnecting ourselves or using the idea of time and placing a wedge between who and what and where we are now and our first person experience of that event. Does that sort of make some sense? So let's take a trauma, for example, because the idea and the focus of this talk is on healing. And so healing generally is coming from some sort of trauma, damage or traumatic event, however you define that. And typically, 100% of us will say we are responding to a trauma that's happened in the past. So how do we deal with that if that event happened in the past? Well, we see a client, they present, they tell us what's going on. They'll usually launch into story to some degree, but that's only for context and introduction. The story's not their problem. Their problem is what's going on in their lives right now and how that story is impacting them. So the story, the reference point, is in time, but no one reason why they're sitting with you has anything to do with time. The issue is right now. So how do we synthesise that? Anxiety, dread of the future, I'm on this proactive path. All of these things are still taking away from who and where you are here and now. And so now is like this magical place that we revolve around from present to past to future, and we're always circling where we are in our heads, but only in our head. Because your mind is connected to everything outside of exactly where you are here and now. And the reason that that is just a simple truth is that as you gain presence and familiarity with presence, your mind has no place there. And we call it in the zone. You know, when you're in the zone, when you're having the best day of your life, when you're in love, when you're in art, when you're listening to music, when you're doing something beautiful, it's you're in the zone. And we know the statement we use around that is time flies when you're having fun. Time disappears. All of those things, we have loads of references for it. And so it's the exact same thing. Yeah, we're actually just not really where we are. Our mind is in other points in time where the only thing we need to know is what's going on right here and now. So an event that you might say happened 30 years ago, in time it did as your reference, but the truth is that event is happening for you in present time right now. If it was just a memory, it's part of all of your mental database that you can refer to, but it's not present in your system. It's not presenting issues, obstacles, challenges, anything. And so we keep going back in time. Counselling, psychology, most of the mainstream kind of therapeutic professions empower you to go back into these points in time, which is a form of disassociation. And you think that it's getting you somewhere because you love telling the story. But as most therapists will progress, you'll find that your clients will become masters of their story, but their healing is going nowhere. They're not actually transforming or getting better. They just get to nail their story. And you might gain insights or understandings by doing that, by mentally exploring what has happened, and you'll get to find out all sorts of things, but that isn't proportionate to healing either. Anything that your mind can realise or find a revelation in, that's wonderful, but that does not automatically translate to healing. Doctors in cults. 10-year degree, 100 and whatever $1,000 later, and socially they're just useless. There's a reason why that can happen, because the reality of something versus your mental reality can be literally worlds apart. And for most of us, it is like that to some degree, because being in this present moment really has no place for your mind or anything that you think about that. True presence is what we call in the zone. And the zone is the power of now. Mr. Tolle, Eckhart Tolle. If you've never heard of Eckhart Tolle and the power of now, leave this room and get it immediately. He will articulate it in half the words that I do, and it will change your life forever. But it's just a reference, that if you want to read a mainstream thing by a dude who's really got it succinct, he will explain this in relation to healing a whole lot more as well. Making sense so far? All right. Again, our language, bringing back to our language and how we don't even know the language that we use, that disassociates us from experience. Again, even in a session, when a client sits with you for a session, they are already there in a time reference that by the end of this session, I will. They're not gauging anything when they walk in the door. They're already putting a time reference for an hour and a half in the future, and that's when they will achieve it. That's when it will happen, and so forth. And you do the same. You do the same with your clients. You do the same with yourself. The clients do the same with themselves. Everything is trapped by your obsessive references in time. Not to time, but in time. And our language embeds our confusion around that. So reality here and now is here and now. How many of you are thinking something else right now? Who's thinking about anything else right now? God, this guy's boring. That wall's interesting. Anything at all, you're not present. And that doesn't matter, there's no judgment in it, but to whatever degree you are not present, to whatever level of percentage you are in here right now and not with us, is the degree of drain that you have. It's the degree of disassociation that you have, because you know you are here now. But it's the compulsive need to be anywhere else, doing anything else, thinking about anything else. And that is the opposite of who and where you are right now. The mind struggles with presence because presence has no place for your mind. And you spent your whole lives building a rich, convoluted, complicated, delightful inner world. And it's bullshit. It's all bullshit. And I don't just mean the bad stuff. I don't just mean the stuff where you go, I might be deluding myself a little bit. It's also the really good stuff. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. If it is not in this room right now, it's not what's going on. For clients, you need to remember this on their behalf when they see you. You need to watch them in reference to time and how everything they tell you, show you with their body language, is embedded in some other place or space that is not where they are. You can work with a client intensively over any period of time, and if you do not get them grounded in your chair, in your office, with you in that moment, no matter what you do, you will continue to send them on a wrong trajectory. You will keep them in their mental space. You'll keep them goal-oriented or future-repulsive. Either way, they will stay in that space. And healing does not occur like that. Time is a mental construct, and it is only for reference purposes. It doesn't exist. So we and time does not offer you a translation service. It offers you interpretation, meaning that whatever is really going on for you right now, as well as for clients, their mind will give you images and everything from the database that it can give you that feels exactly like what is really true right now. Just like in your dreams. Dream state have absolute truth in feeling space. The rest of it is out of control. It's just interpretations of those feelings with as many pictures that your mind can come up with that feel like that. Which is why dreams will have an emotionally consistent theme, but mentally they make no sense. Dream analysis has nothing to do with the symbols or the images in the dream. How did the dream feel? Simple. That's your dream analysis. Forget the rest of it. That's all mental. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help the client. And it's the same in healing. They'll give you the rich tapestry of their story and so forth and so on. They might present broken, they might present amazing, whatever. How are you feeling right now? And a lot of clients stuck in here will go, well, I think, and the minute they go, well, are you feeling? No, you're thinking about how you're feeling. You can't think about how you're feeling. Emotion is a faculty and an aspect of you unto itself. If you're thinking about how you're feeling, bullshit. Cut your client off immediately because they are not giving you an authentic answer and you are not treating them authentically.